This week's sponsor, KR Couriers and Transport Limited, are best known as being a Northwest-based company who deliver newspapers and magazines for local news agents and superstores. You'll find all the information within the description. Please give them a follow. Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome to the Billy Moore podcast, and today's special guest and none other legend than Rusty Firmin. How are you, my mate?
Good. Nice trip across town to get here, but fine.
Do you know what? I'm absolutely delighted to have you on. It's a privilege because I grew up, watching, heroes like yourself do just incredible things. So, SAS Blue Team leader, backdoor assault team.
That's right.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was born in Carlisle. And not only that, I was adopted within 14 months. So I started off in life with a hard life. And it was basically fight your way out on your own. I had some friends. But when I started to grow up and travel around and made friends quite easy. But my roots are Carlisle. I don't get there very often, but I am doing an event in Carlisle in Harrowby Theatre. That will take place on 20th of March coming. Fought my way through there, ended up in Junior Leaders Regiment Royal Artillery. I don't know how I got there, but I got there as a 15-year-old lad, long hair, Rolling Stones fan. I didn't want to be in the army. It's simple as that. I wanted to play football.
Crazy, isn't it?
I was 5'2", 7 stone. I had no chance really.
Yeah.
So, first 3 months in junior leaders down in Nuneaton in Warwickshire. If I had £50, I would have bought myself out the army. I hated it. Hated the discipline. Hated everything about it. However, after the first 3 months, they recognised that I had a bit of a talent for football, and I started to play for the junior leaders football team. Recognition, something I'd never had. So I went on a little bit further, and then I thought into the Royal Artillery. There were still some national service lads around. Used to play for Stoke, and they took me under the wing. I ended up being captain of 49 Field Regiment Royal Artillery, won lots of trophies. Didn't want to do any soldiering. I tried to be a tracksuit soldier, and I've succeeded for a long time because that's what I wanted to do, play football. So spent 4 years, Northern Ireland tours, came and went in the 70s. Then I thought, itchy feet, commandos or paras. I looked at Aldershot, I looked at Plymouth. I went to Plymouth and did the Royal Marine Commando course, got my Green Beret, and again, into the football team, playing football for the Corps, played football for the British Army, so I did reach a standard, semi-professional football.
You're pretty good by the sounds of it.
Yeah. So I did get to the top in semi-professional football. But then, a couple of tours to Northern Ireland, again, all over the place, but soldiering this time, a bit more soldiering. But I went straight to training wing. They suddenly saw a bit of potential in me, and they said, we'd like to put you on the training wing, which is taking you commandos and turning them into Green Beret commandos. So, and that's how it used to be in my day. Spent 3.5 years in the commandos. I thought, time for a move. The only one place I could have gone, I went to Hereford, and I volunteered for SAS selection in 77. It was a summer selection. It's the hottest summer ever on record.
77?
77.
Yeah.
And it's very, very hot up on those mountains. You really have worked. Quite a big turnout, and quite a lot of people fell by the wayside. I was lucky enough to get through and pass selection.
So, when you're doing the selection, because it's always intrigued me this, you've got a selection, so you volunteer for selection for the SAS,
yep.
Right? You've got to go through this rigorous, hard training. Yeah,
it is,
and it's obviously you've got to be elite to get through it.
I got myself, as I say, I was on training wing in the Commandos, so I was always fit. Playing football, I was fit. But I can tell you now, once you start putting that heavy weights on your back and going over the mountains, tests, you know, it culminates after 3 weeks. The 4th week is a test week, and it's every day you're out there, different times of the morning, different weights, different routes. You don't know how. You didn't have a time. It was only when everybody was in that the instructors would tell you if you passed or failed. So he had no idea till he finished and I didn't want to fail. I've got to be honest. I didn't want to fail. And that happened, culminating on the last day of that, a 42-miler over the Brecon Beacons, full kit.
42 miles.
Hardly any water. The reservoir, a penny fan, that was empty. It had cracks in it. 42-mile at the end, heavy weights, and I still didn't know if I'd passed, but I made it. And then you wait, and then you're told you haven't made it, you have made it, you haven't. I was lucky. I put my heart and soul into it, as I normally do, and that was me. I'd passed selection, but that was only the beginning. That doesn't make you an SAS soldier, because you have all the jungle training after, combat survival, day after day. Your body, after the 6 months of the SAS course, is completely shattered. It's run down beyond belief. But then, you know, is it all been worth it? And then when your name is called out, that you've passed, there's no big ceremonies. When you've passed, it's like, you're going into B-Squadron, you're going to A Squadron. I went to B-Squadron. And of course, that's where I wanted to go. I had some friends in there already. Yeah. I got the troop, me and John McAleese, the people who remember him. We all ended up in the same troop, in the same squadron, which was absolutely brilliant. And it went from there. And basically it was go over to the QM's department, the quartermaster, get your stable belt, get your berry, and go and report to the squadron sergeant major. Tell him who you are, and you join in the squadron. No ceremonies like there were in the Commandos. You get your green berry, and that's what it was like. And you know what? I prefer it that way. I knew exactly what I was going to do, how I stood, and what I wanted to do. And that was the start of my career. The last 15 years, as you see there on the book, 15 years in the SAS. So it goes through my life up until I left the SAS. It's quite an interesting book, I've been told by a lot of people.
Oh, I can imagine. I believe so. And I'll be putting all the links to this book in the description and promoting both of them. And you've also got a YouTube channel, haven't you?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel,
Websites.
Everything's under Rusty Firmin.
Yeah.
You've only got to go. Well, there's my website up there. You can get the books and prints, and there's some stuff on my website. Basically, you order it straight online, and I sign it and post it out to you. It's as simple as that.
Brilliant.
And it's done well. The regiment book and Go Go Go. That's through the hard work at the end of the day. The Go 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 tells you about the Iranian Embassy siege. It's Jamie Bell on the front cover, plays me in the film 6 Days on Netflix. And I would never have got any of this if I hadn't put that effort in the first place to get to the top of where I wanted to go.
Exactly.
And I got to the top.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sat here today with you today, being interviewed.
It's brilliant. It's a privilege, and it's like the experiences you've had, are absolutely incredible. Because the Iranian Embassy siege. Now I'm at an age where I was probably about 9, 10, give or take. It was pretty much after the Falklands War or around that time, wasn't it?
No, it was at the beginning of 1980.
1980.
30th of
Yeah.
April.
So I was about 7. Yeah, I was even younger. But it was nationalised, it was televised.
Oh,
so
there's coincidences all the way down the line. The 30th of April to the 5th of May, hence the 6 days of film taken from my book.
Yeah.
So, and even on the 5th of May, when we did the resolution, when we went in to rescue the hostages, after they had killed Lavasani, the press attaché, only a young lad, they tied him to the stairs and shot him 3 times, and then they threw him outside the front door. Not a lot of people like the Prime Minister, Maggie Thatcher of the day. I loved her. Yeah. And, of course, she gave us the order, rescue the hostages. That's exactly what we did. We went in there to rescue the hostages. Proof of murder on UK soil. Seen, witnessed, and in we went to rescue them. It took...
So that's justified you going in, the proof of murder on UK soil.
Yep.
Simple as that. So like she gives you the go ahead.
Yeah.
Right, so you were on standby for quite some time.
On standby, and Max Vernon, he was the chief negotiator. Did a great job buying us all that time to plan and prepare for the mission. And the mission was to rescue the hostages. Unfortunately, 5 of them died. That's the terrorists, and 1 got out. But we did rescue the hostages without any loss of life after they'd executed Lavasani, who was a press attaché for the Iranian Embassy.
So, what was your feelings? I mean, I've seen 6 Days. Great story, by the way. You know, you can get it on Netflix. Jamie Bell plays a great role. Plays yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. So, what was your feelings? Because, you know, I'm experiencing, you know, the movie as a whole. But what was you going through at that time? You know, that the moments. What are the memories
of the actual assault?
Well, you've witnessed a murder. You know, So
well, we were sat watching the snooker next door in number 1415 Princess Gate, which is a Royal College of General Practitioners. So we were sat there waiting, kitted up, all ready to go. But as negotiations went on, there are times when you sort of stand down but are ready to go, and times when you stand to, and that means you're right outside, ready to do the assault. Well, it actually, when we got there, we were watching snooker, having a cup of tea, you know, just next door, and waited. And then when we got the proof of murder, very, very quickly, the police handed over control to the SAS, because remember, a lot of people don't realise that it was a police operation supported by the SAS. Proof of murder changed that. They then handed over control to the SAS, of which I was a blue team leader. We had blue and red teams, so it's not just blue team. Blue and red team made up the squadron. Yeah. And then proof of murder changed it. We got told to get into position. It took us 16 minutes covertly to get into position. Top of the roof, back door, balcony, all ready to go. And it took us 11 minutes to clear the 54 rooms. This is from Go, 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 my book. It's from Go, 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 11 minutes to get in there, find the hostages, find the terrorists, rescue the hostages. And as I say, 5 of the terrorists died. And you'll see in the back there, you know, waited for the coroner's report, which is in the back of the book, which is quite important. And it was rapid, you know, and the good news is that all the hostages came out.
Well, that's the motto is speed, aggression, and surprise, isn't it? That was I've read a lot of books on
speed, aggression, surprise, and controlled firepower.
Yeah. Wow,
it's amazing memory. I can. The funny thing was, I was supposed to be playing in a cup final that day, Kidderminster Harriers ground. You know, it was the West Midlands Cup final. I told Andy, who was running the team, I said, "I know where you are," he said. He didn't have any mobile phones, but you'll have to make a call every now and then. He said, "I know where you are." He said, "I'll get my brother to stand in." He did. He scored the winning goal. But there was a few hundred at the stadium. There was a few million who watched us at the end of the day. So it's a bit of a crowd change, So there was
quite anticipated. I mean, it was like, you know, back then there was no social media like there is today. No. It would have been, you know, and the SAS were like, you know, they were like virtually unknown. They were quite secret air service, obviously. You know, it was formed by David Stirling back in World War II. Yeah.
Not just David Stirling, but it was formed for that.
Yeah.
For that reason. Yeah.
Covert operations, behind lines. Yeah. So did you ever get involved in any of the Iraq?
No, I left as the first war came out. I left.
What was that? What year? 1990?
Yeah, 1990. I'd gone into the TA, Territorial Army SAS, as an instructor there for the last 2 years, an extended 2 years of my service. basically that was to help you get yourself sorted out for Civvy Street. You know, if you want to do it, it just it was a job in King's Standing with 2-3 SAS HQ Squadron.
Yeah.
So I volunteered. It's in the book. Can you swap me over? And they said no. They said, you're too old. I was 40. That was one of the excuses, but basically I wanted to go because I still had 2 years, but in fact, because I'd signed on for the extra 2 years, I had to stick there. So I was at home when the war took off.
Yeah. So you might be able to answer this question. I'm not too sure if this was true. Right now, I've got a few friends who were involved in the Strangeways riots. I think Maggie Thatcher was still in power back then. When they in Manchester, the biggest riots in the UK, it was like a hostage situation for 30 days. They were taking a prison hostage in a sense. But a friend of mine who...
You heard about the Scottish one? The prison hostage one?
No, the one in Manchester.
Oh.
Remember Strangeways riots? I think it was 1989,
yeah.
1990. So you probably would have been on the back end of your service.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was telling me that, you know, Maggie Thatcher was sending in the SAS because it got to a point where for 30 days, right, you know, these prisoners are taking this prison hostage. There's been deaths.
But that was Peterhead up in Scotland.
No, that's a different one. Is there a different one?
I don't know the one in Manchester.
No, didn't you? You never heard of it, Rusty?
No.
Strangeways riots.
Oh no, I've heard of the riots.
Yeah.
I've not heard of the SAS involvement in it.
No, well, there you go.
And
So,
I was still serving in the SAS at the time.
that's cleared up. That's what I wanted to know.
Peterhead.
Peterhead, is that
That's
on
up
a
in
prison?
Scotland. That's where they sent them in.
Okay, so what happened there?
Well, I wasn't involved in that one. I know some of the guys, obviously, that were. Basically, they flew in choppers and stuff. They went in and sorted it out very, very quickly.
There's no messing about.
They sent them in late. If they could have sent them in a bit earlier, it might have helped. But it's better late than never, as they say. And the guys that went in from the other squadron did a good job. And they stopped it and arrested a few, and you know, things got back to normal again. But it was very, very quickly. It was quick.
Yeah.
And that's, again, you do the planning and preparation, and then you go and do it. And as you say, speed, aggression, surprise. Yeah. And it worked, and they did a good job.
So the government utilised your services pretty, like, covertly, here and abroad.
Yeah.
You know, so how did it feel for you to be part of an elite team, especially after the Iranian Embassy siege and the publicity that the SAS as a whole, received, you know, because there was a lot going on then, wasn't it? You know, who are they? What's going on? These Sheikh, no one knew who you were.
But no, before that, I can tell you now, the camp we were in Hereford, a civilian could come to the front gate, they'd open the barrier, they'd let them walk through and catch a bus at the other side. Once we'd carried out that, the SAS went from that right up, you know, all over the world. And very shortly, we were away training foreign nationals abroad, which was a big money maker for the government. And I did Sri Lanka, I'll tell you, and quite a number of other ones as training teams. And they charge a fortune, but people wanted to be trained by what they called the best, the SAS. And that's what happened. So the profile, the camp was rebuilt, the security was put in place because of everything, the troubles that were going on, you know, and still sometimes over in Ireland and stuff. It was very, very... One camp was revamped totally to the top-notch security, when in fact a couple of years before you could walk through the camp.
And now it's just totally changed?
No, you won't get in there now. Even I don't go in there anymore.
No?
No, it's moved out to Credden Hill, a place 6 miles out of town. But it's an old RAF base, so they've revamped that because it's a much bigger unit now with the supporting arms and stuff which they need for the operations they do.
Yeah,
so it's a totally different setup now from when I did mine.
See, going back to when you were when you first started the army, you joined the army. Like, I think it was I know you said you didn't want to be a soldier in the beginning. You know, you hated it. After 3 months, you found a bit of a talent. Now, I remember, like, at a young age, and I always wanted to be in the army, always. And I was in the Royal Artillery Cadets I joined the Royal Artillery Cadets. We were involved in like a little bit of camping. We used to have to wear 3-7 webbing, you know.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
3-7 webbing, and we were learning with 303 rifles, the Lee Enfields.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot. We had to have putties and all that. So I think there was 8.2 webbing as well.
Yeah.
But that, you know, you had to have a few quid behind you to have that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because we were just given what we were given. But yeah, my dream was always to be, you know, in service, and obviously, you know, my path took a different direction. And I'll tell you something now, which is quite odd, right? I've got a brother who just recently left the army. He was in there for 27 years, 28 years. You might say he was in there longer. He's a year younger. But he had no, he didn't want to join the army. He had no idea he was going to get involved. He didn't. Yeah. You look at him and think, never. Not in his mindset. He had a relationship breakdown one time, couldn't cope, just joined the army at the age of 17, and that was it. He was in service. He went all over the world, lived in Germany for over 10 years in Osnabrück, and I went on a different path. But I think it was every boy's dream to be in the SAS or the SBS or some kind of special armed forces.
Yeah. For me, it was a natural progression because I wasn't married at the time, and I seemed to get itchy feet at a certain stage. And speaking to people when I was out meeting them, and he said, "Well," and that's how it all started, you know. But I wanted, when I got so far in the commandos and stuff, I was thinking then, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I went and did some training over in the Brecon Beacons prior to it. That's how I first met John McAleese. He was doing the same prior to going on selection. I said there was no water, so I used to take cans of cider with me up onto the top of the hills. I know I don't recommend it, but actually it went in and it came out. And water, you couldn't find water. And you weren't, apart from what you took with you. Yeah. And everybody knows that water's quite heavy on top of, you know, the kit and equipment you're carrying. So, and it was definitely the hottest summer on record. It was, each day was mind-blowing. Especially
carrying a heavy pack.
Yeah.
You know, that could be... What was your relationship like with John McAleese? Because he was another legend, another hero.
Well, we hit it off as soon as we met. We met at the top of Penny Fan. They were coming up... People who don't know, Penny Fan is the highest point in the Brecon Beacons, if you get to the top of it. And we would come up one side, me and a few mates that were out doing some pre-selection training. And I just can't believe it, that up the other side of at the top, when we sat down and had a can of cider, and then John and them came up and we all got together and had a chat. And then all of a sudden we all moved into the same, we stayed in the tents in Brecon Beacon, parked the car up, put your tent to one side and stuff, and then do your training through the day. And then night time we'd nip down the pub or bring some beers back from a place called Kevin Coed, just down the road, and I know the off license is still there because I was in there about. No, it is. It's still there, the same one exactly. After all these years, and I was there about 12 months ago when I was up at the Fan, doing some charity stuff because I'm a patron of 4 charities as well, including the VC Trust. You know, so it's put me instead. But with John. We hit it off and we stayed mates. He ended up passing selection, and he was an ex-commando engineer. I was a commando artillery, which is 2-9 commando. He was 5-9 independent commando. Then he got posted. He got posted up to Arbroath with the commandos, 4-5 I think, and I got posted to Plymouth, so you couldn't be much further apart.
Yeah.
But then, as we say, we met up on pre-selection training. We did our selection. You're not allowed to do it together. You do individual stuff. But at the end of the day, we'd always go down and have a pint. Whenever we got back to Hereford, we went for a pint. And most of the guys that passed the selection always went for a pint. Some of the other, the good guys who didn't want to go out, a lot of them didn't they didn't make it. But the guys who stuck together as a group, and they did make it. So
it's a thinking culture, isn't it? The army.
Yeah.
It's quite known.
I stayed with John for a long time. Same troop, same squadron, and then when we went after that onto the security circuit, when we left, John was always around, one of my team members really, and finally 2011, 2009, his son was blown up in Afghanistan. That hurt him big time. He went out to Greece with a friend, stayed with a friend of mine.
Was he killed, his son?
Yeah. And then he died in Greece, and they brought him back, and I did his eulogy for him in Hereford Cathedral. It was packed. So, and that was 2011. So, we stayed together all that time.
So you had a strong friendship.
Yeah.
Which is important. Yeah. I can see that as well.
Yeah.
I think that builds the relationships that you build over years.
Well, it did. And to this day, we're still friends with a lot of people. I mean, I don't bother too much with I don't follow the new guys, what they do. I don't ask them any questions. But they do a great job. But we have still got, there's quite a lot have passed away by now, by the way. But the ones that are still around, we go back to Hereford, go down, give them a call, have a beer with them or something. So so life still goes on.
It does, yeah. It does. What was what I'm interested in, and I'm sure the audience is like dangerous situations, and that that you found yourself in. Was there any that you really you thought, wow, my life in fear because of some of the situations you were placed in?
I'm not going to be big-headed, but
no, don't. Just say it how it is.
Dangerous situations were quite common, not just on operations, but the training for operations, because you have to train hard to fight easy, if you like. And we did. Northern Ireland had some scares in Northern Ireland, but it never stopped me wanting to go back out, and I can't say too much about it because, as you know, there's a lot of investigations going on.
Yeah.
But and then some of the other training abroad, realistic training and stuff. My life really has been about that. Nothing, I never expected it to be easy. But it was voluntary, so I put myself in the line.
You volunteer for the pain.
How can you volunteer for something and then want to pull out of it?
Yeah.
Some of this, the training we did for the Operation Mikado when we were going to go to Argentina in the Falklands War, that was hair-raising because we had to practice properly down on the Ascension Islands to hit that, and then go and find the
So you were actually a member of the SAS when the Falklands was, because obviously, you prior to that, you were in the Iranian Embassy siege, and then the Falklands kicked in.
Yeah.
And then you usually go in there, because the paras were involved massively, weren't they?
In which one?
In Goose Green.
Yeah.
And Ascension Island, was that your...
Ascension Island
was that your gig?
No, Ascension Island was a training area prior to going to the Falklands.
Okay.
But the paras did a great job down in Goose Green. But we didn't see anything of them because we were totally separate, because we had a mission to fly into Argentina and, kill the pilots of the Supertendados that were doing the damage to the ships. There was 3 Exocet missiles left there. We were to find them, destroy them, kill the pilots, and destroy the aircraft, and also obliterate everything we could, and then escape and evade to Chile. That was only called off for a number of reasons. Everything was ready to go on that. And at some stage, we lost 19 guys on the helicopter incident.
Wow.
Irreplaceable, all in St. Martin's Church in Hereford. And that changed an awful lot because we had to go and take over from a squadron that had lost half the guys. 19 doesn't seem a lot. One's too many, but 19, a lot of senior people. So plans changed. Once again, Maggie Thatcher was at the helm. And the attack on the attack on mainland Argentina, Punta Gorda, the airfield, didn't take place as planned. So we went into a different role then. I went to train and then take over from some of the guys that were going out, and then we were taking their place and going in. We had no weapons because they all went to the bottom of the South Atlantic. You know, it's all in the book. Disaster. So as guys were coming out, we were taking weapons off them. And they were going out and going to fly back.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing that happened. And we ended up more or less just handing kit over. You know,
yeah.
That's how it was. Not a big deal, but not ideal.
That's the kind of, you know, like listening to the operation on mainland Argentina from yourself.
That's
and I can imagine it in the book as well, because I mean, reading it is a lot more, you know, intense because you're in it and you're descriptive. But listening to what you've said there, it's like, wow, you know, I couldn't even imagine having to go onto the air ground, right, as a small force.
We weren't going to make it.
No, I would sneak in.
We had no air cover. To a C-130s that fly, 400 mile an hour?
Yeah.
Half a squadron on each. It was operation.
And have you got a parachute in?
No, we were going to land on the airfield because we had vehicles on the...
So you're landing on the airfield, coming out in vehicles from the back of the...
Yeah, surrounded by Argentina commandos and stuff.
Yeah, and then
infantry.
Wow. It's just like cannon fodder, basically, weren't it? Like that's...
We nicknamed it Operation Certain Death.
Operation Certain Death.
That's
wow.
It. If anybody had escaped to Chile,
yeah,
it would have been a good one.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if you had running shoes on, I don't know. But
operations.
But we were there.
If you're naming that operations Certain Death, that's imminent. Like, wow, are we gonna get through this? It's quite unlikely. You're landing on their airfield. You're gonna be driving out. You're gonna have to destroy these exocet missiles.
Kill the
pilots, and whoever else is gonna be the enemies.
Question.
Wow,
yeah,
it's heavy.
And then escape and evade.
Yeah.
So, and you know, looking back on it, but when I was younger, it's stupid to say, but there was no fear. We did all the training, and it's the same thing as it was waiting for the embassy. You just want to go and do it. If it's going to be done, let's go and do it. But circumstances changed that. Circumstances played a part in the Iranian Embassy as well. If they hadn't killed him and put him out, they could have been negotiating to this day.
Yeah.
Because you weren't going to, you always wanted to rescue the hostages, but actually.
But do you feel like you're the last resort?
The what? Sorry.
The last resort. The SAS is the last resort.
No, not always. I'm talking about my day.
Yeah.
In my day, we went to a few other ones. You know, the airfield when they hijacked the aircraft and stuff, and then they sent a couple over to Mogadishu when they were to work with GSG-9 and stuff. So it was a recognised, and that was before, and it was recognised that we weren't a bad bunch of guys really, and could do a job. So they always had them stacked on the shelf, but there wasn't a million of us. You know, if there's 4 squadrons in my day, and they all had 60. That's how many guys we had. They can't put them everywhere.
240 total.
And then there'd be the other ones that had done a bit, and then they'd be doing maybe admin jobs for 2 years, like I did bodyguard instructor for 2 years, teaching the royalty protection and teaching the SAS guys all about the bodyguards training and doing the syllabus with them. And that was my 2-year break. That was my job for 2 years, counter-revolutionary warfare. My job was 2 years training bodyguards, which was great because you can't. If you're going to do something, I'd probably pick that because it was a sought-after job.
Yeah.
But lucky enough, there's only 2 of us on it for 2 years. And then another 2 would take over, and so on and so on. So that was part of the job, and it was a good job, because I did all my training to become in that position really. So for a couple of years, it meant you were back in Hereford. You could plan something, because generally speaking, unless you were really required to go somewhere and do something, you had a job for 2 years where you could actually plan something. which normally you can't. You sat there 1 minute. Falklands, I was in the middle of a Portuguese language course. I was ripped out of that along with the other guys.
Yeah.
Right. We're being deployed to the Falklands War. So they took us off that.
Stays over there.
And then that's how quickly. It's not like we wait and see what happens. It doesn't work like that.
So it's just instant, bang, you're gone.
Yeah. Obviously, go and pack your kit and stuff, but it's a mission. It was an operation, so that warrants that, and that's what we did. But in my day, as I say, I don't know what they do now. I do know what they do, but I'm not going to talk about what they do. But it's as quick as that. The course is stopped. You all go back, and get your operational kit sorted out. It's always sorted out anyway, but and then from there you move on.
So with the teams that you had, were these small teams that went in on these operations, like 8-man teams? Is that true? 16-man teams? Normally
it was 4-man teams.
Yeah, it's 4, even less. Yeah.
Yeah, and normally that would work out. You'd probably have, or should have, a linguist if you're abroad. I did 2 language courses, Malay and Arabic. So you'd have a linguist. Somebody else might have done German. So you'd find, something like that. You'd have a demolitionist normally. I did my demolitions course as well, so I'm a qualified instructor in demolitions. You'd have a communicator, signals, they were called in my day. I skipped that one. And a paramedic type qualification, which I was a paramedic as well. Me and John did the same course in Hereford, and then we went to Leeds, and it was when you go as an attachment then. So we went up there for a month, attached to the hospital. It's when the ambulance strike was on, and there was no drivers for the ambulance. And in there, me and John got into trouble, because they were trying to pick on the doctors and stuff. It's all in the book. So that would be your 4-man type of patrol. You'd have a commander. The longer you've been there, probably the more qualified you are. And if you had a young lad in there who were doing nothing, you'd be teaching him but watching him. Yeah. As you never stop being watched until it's your turn. And even then, I know 4 sergeant majors, 1 from each squadron, they were sent back to their unit, finished, for things that happened. So it's a place that kept you on your toes, I can tell you that, because you're being watched and you're watching others. Yeah. And it's not to snitch on them, because you're there to help. You don't want to lose anybody after the training and what it costs to get them through. But generally speaking, when if there's a weak link there, they may, and I've seen it happen to quite a few people that I know, and they've been caught. And that's the secret, being caught. Yeah. And I've seen it. It's not nice. Friends that are good soldiers have gone. It's quick as that. It's quick.
So do you think, I'm just quite, because there must have been a lot of people wanting to know the identity of SAS soldiers, especially like the enemy terrorists. Yeah. On British soil, because you were highly regarded as, the elite special forces, and if you had, especially in Ireland, Northern Ireland, I mean, that must have been a hairy place to be, in Belfast. Yeah,
when you're in a car on your own, you're hypersensitive, and that's what we did a lot of. I've done all the surveillance courses, anti-surveillance, counter-surveillance, and you needed it. You go out and make a mistake and somebody spots you, then you're in for hiding. But normally speaking, I've got pictures with hair down here. There's one in the book. And to be honest, in the 70s and 80s, that's how they were over there. Blend in. I know we speak English, but there was English speakers, tried to keep yourself. And hardly ever wore an SAS uniform. It was always civilian clothes, unless we were doing maybe a joint ops with somebody, and then you can put a jacket on or something to blend in, but you still had hair down here and stuff, But that was only one-offs, you know. And in Hereford itself, when I was serving, I never went to camp in uniform. I had my uniform in camp if I needed it. I'd go in civilian clothes, get changed if I needed it in camp. I stay there as long as I put your civilian clothes back on and go home. So you took everything you were doing, it was for a reason. And most people that I know would have done exactly the same.
Yeah, so you were very careful in how you...
Well, you had to be, because everybody, you know, you look under your car, you know, to see if there's anything attached to it. As long as you're being seen doing that, and people, if anybody's actually watching, they'll think, well, there's no point in doing it, because he's checking it. Even if it's just a cursory check, you haven't got time to do it all the time. But if you stay alert, and I've always been suspicious, my eyeballs are going everywhere, you know, if you do that, it helps yourself, but it still keeps you active, and you're not falling asleep.
Yeah.
You know, even in the pubs down in town in Hereford, the old days we used to get quite a lot in one bar, you know. And the thing then was desert boots given away. Everybody wore desert boots.
Yeah,
because they were free. They were given you for the desert, but they were comfortable.
Yeah.
So he must be in the SAS. He's got long hair. He's got desert boots on. He's got jeans on. What do you do? But you know, but we all knew each other. If there was a different face came in, we'd certainly know him.
I spent a lot of time up in Aldershot, you know, because my uncle, I've got a family who were in the parish, Three Para, and you know, as a young kid, he used to always say to me, I was always like excited to and I remember it was a Dakota, I think, outside.
Yeah.
It was an old Dakota playing, and you know, the assault course was on site, and you know, we lived in billets, and you know, I was just a young kid, and I used to get like it was just an exciting kind of time. But I remember going to the pubs, because at that age in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, kids could sit in pubs and people were smoking cigarettes, and it was what it was back then. But I'd observed all this, you know, all these soldiers, and she's quite like in awe of everything, really. It was like just a young
It used to be
kid.
a busy area.
Very, very busy, yeah.
It's the home of the British Army football team as well.
Is it, yeah?
Yeah, the Aldershot Stadium. Yeah.
So I read a story years ago. You know, obviously you know this guy, Andy McNabb. I don't know what your thoughts are on the new age SAS, but that book you wrote, the one that got away, I'm sure it was him that wrote that book. Was it him or Bravo 20? Either one of them.
He wrote Bravo 20, but the real story is in the real Bravo 20.
And what's that one?
That's the real story.
Is it?
Yeah. So I'm not going to say too much about McNabb, but let's just say we're not friends.
Okay, that's
and
fair enough.
haven't been for a long time.
That's fair enough, you know.
And the other guy, the one that got away,
what was his name?
Is what do you call it? His pen name is down as Chris Ryan.
I'd say Chris Ryan. He wrote a lot of books after that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot, but it was more like it started to get a bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
a bit out of it.
At the end of the day,
fiction.
At the end of the day, you've got a story to tell.
Yeah.
And you've done your bit. Why not?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I believe that if you don't tell your story, someone will tell one for you.
Well,
right?
That was one of the generals, you know, that I know that wanted McNabb, if I remember rightly, and Chris. He wanted the stories off them, a debrief type of thing. So they both went out the army instead.
Yeah.
And pursued whatever they're doing these days.
Because from both of what I read in both of them, it was a testament from reading it to like the elements that you're up against. And do you believe that to be true?
Just say that again.
Do you believe that to be true? The stories from Chris and Andy, you know, like both stories that they've written, especially like the one that got away.
There's nobody can
verify it, to be fair. Yeah, and that's understandable.
But that was a good feat in itself to go that distance.
Some distance, yeah.
On your own. the story's there. You know, I wouldn't decry it, but it's the way it's put across, isn't it? And if you're on your own and doing an escape and evasion on your own, you know, just to get through that is quite a feat.
Yeah.
So you have to take your hat off to him.
Yeah, it is. It's like,
You know?
see, I grew up around, I was around that age where them books were coming out, like where I'm reading, you know, kind of getting involved in a lot of stories. I like the fantasy.
Yeah.
I couldn't face reality.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed reading fantasy, and whether it was, to me, obviously they were autobiographies of one man's story, and it was like, wow, this is like incredible. These feats and these journeys that these have been on. So yeah, but then more books came out, didn't he? Like
There's a lot out now.
It became a lot.
Yeah, it's like a conveyor belt, you know. But it gets people recognised, and people, they've got their own career to. Let's be honest, you know, you do your X number. I did 27 years eventually, from a 15-year-old.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And you've got your own life to lead after that. I don't owe the SAS anything.
No.
I put hard work in it to get in and fight for my country. I think that should be rewarded in some way.
It should be. And Rusty, you know what? You are one of the original OGs, the original SAS team leaders, people that remember you, the people that come from the back end. You're the predecessor. The people that, you know, going forward, the likes of Ant Middleton and Chris Ryan and Andy McNabb, you know, they weren't really. They haven't achieved what you, as a whole team, had done, because you had like years of like Falklands War, Belfast, you know, covert operations abroad, you know, sieges, plane sieges. There's a lot.
And training people
and training people, you know, all that. So there's a lot of respect. I'd rather be interviewing you than I would them. To be fair, you know, I feel more privileged sitting here interviewing yourself. Because it's not, you know, I don't really know them. I've got no opinion on them.
I mean, I just call it a day job.
Yeah.
But it's a day job I enjoyed in the end. It wasn't a day job I enjoyed to start with, I can tell you that.
No.
But once I progressed through and then when I left, I was quite proud of what I did. And if it helps other people, which it does, as I say, as I've moved on, I've been all over the world more than once. The people I've met and the people who've read my books, they've come back to me and said, you were the inspiration why I joined the army, things like that. I talk to cadets nowadays, and have done for quite a while. I do my own talks. You'll see them on the internet. 20 odd I've got lined up already. So, you know, if people want, you know, to get a venue and a time for a talk on the Falklands, maybe the 40th anniversary and stuff coming up, I do all that. I did the big ones for the 40th anniversary of the siege, 2020.
It's a long time, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so all this time has gone by, but actually all you have to do is Google Rusty Firmin and you'll see. And all, you know, especially on Facebook, if anybody's following me on Facebook, they're all, I've got quite a lot. But what I'm doing on there is sorting out, and I've got talks planned for England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. So that's this year.
Yeah. You know, so here's another question. I was asked by Dave, the guy who runs this place. He said, ask him what his thoughts are on, you know, the Ukraine war, Putin today, this day and age. What do you think is going on there?
There's so much going on there. I just think that Putin is trying to get all the land back as it was the USSR.
Yeah.
And I think he sees it belongs to Russia. I think he's got enough troops and stuff to take it if he wants to. Yeah. It won't be easy. It's not going to be easy. So at the moment, it's not even saber rattling, is it? They're there.
Yeah.
They could move a stone's throw, but if you look, I'm certain that they would get it eventually, but then they've got all the surrounding states, haven't they? Yeah. I'm sure they want everything. And at the same time, right now, today, China are preparing for war.
Yeah.
What if it happens together?
Russia and China are allies as well. So,
Russia.
you know, you're talking like China's got probably the biggest like count of soldiers
It is.
on the planet.
It is. And then they've got that other loon, what's his name, over on North Korea.
Yeah.
He's waiting to play games, you know.
And he'd definitely be involved with the likes of Russia and China because they...
So it's at the moment it's very tense.
It is tense, yeah.
But I don't think Putin for 1 minute is frightened
I don't think.
the West. And when you look at our leaders from the top down,
Yeah.
I wouldn't follow them.
I wouldn't.
You know,
I get it.
no, I wouldn't. You know, they don't inspire me in any way. And while the war's been going on and being planned, we're talking about Partygate.
Yeah.
And how much time has that taken up?
Waste of time.
Questions and answers on Partygate. There's a war around the corner.
Exactly.
Nobody
So
even thought about that.
You've got like Putin, right, and the British government and the American government and all what to do is like sanctions. Now this is how it is. Back then it was
Sanctions, yeah.
Sanctions. Okay, well, I don't even know what a sanction is, to be fair. Right, I've got no idea what the sanctioning them on. I don't think Putin's sitting there going, well, I'm bothered about getting sanctioned here. Not asked. Know what I mean? I'm going in, this is ours, it belongs to us, I'm going to take it back.
Yeah.
It's not about money because they've got enough money. Then money is power and power is money,
Yeah.
so it comes hand in hand. So your role back then, would you always be on standby for something like this as a British?
Well,
Now the British are involved, aren't they, in sanctioning them?
I've done the what they call it BRINCO, BRINCO, Brigade and Regimental Intelligence NCO. I did that right at the end of my service. The wall was still up. If you remember the wall,
Yeah,
that
Berlin.
was still up. When I finished that and went back to Hereford, the wall came down. So, and we would, and the TA, territorial SAS, would have been involved in that type of stuff on the ground. We didn't have enough to put people on the ground totally. As I've already said, we weren't a huge force, a good force, but not huge, and that's why I think it was so successful.
Yeah.
Because it was smaller, but to go into the likes of Russia, you're going to need people dug in nuclear, biological, chemical, MBCs they call it.
Yeah.
You've got to, it would have been difficult, but it would have happened. But now they're rolling the tanks like they are, and you have to do all the vehicle recognition, BRDMs and T-62, whatever. And you have to learn all of those, in case you ever had to go and report on them. So that was always being done. I don't know if it's being done to this day, no idea. But actually that was part of the job. So definitely would have been involved in some way. And at the moment there's a lot of training going on.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of training as well.
I think someone was saying to me the other day that like the British Army is quite small in comparison as to back in a couple of decades ago.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
I think it's down to, is it around about 60,000 now?
60,000.
It's something like that, but it has dropped and dropped and dropped. We want to make it smaller but more mobile. You know what? Putin, well, the Chinese have got 1.4 million. Korea's got the same, not far off. China.
Yeah.
The only one that compares with them, I think, is probably the Indian army. They're on our side. But the rest, numbers-wise...
The States haven't got that many, have they?
Who?
America, they haven't got...
America second or third on the list, I think.
So they must have
but I think China are right up at the top. Russia's not far.
Yeah.
Manpower, it's ridiculous. And of course,
I think they all rely on like modern warfare these days, like nukes and.
Well, that would play a big part, but there again, you've got to live in that environment afterwards.
You'll have, yeah.
But for those that don't know, there's an awful lot of stuff been going on underground. DUMBs. Have a look at it. DUMBs. DUMBS. Dirty underground military bunkers.
Yeah.
All underground. Continent to continent. Yeah. So
there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of.
There is, and I dig into it.
DUMBs. We'll look into that. DUMBs. I know you're wearing I know a lot of people are not a big fan of Margaret Thatcher, but obviously you admire her.
Yeah.
Why did you admire her? Because I know there was a lot of hatred for her. I think Boris Johnson's quite on par with her at the moment in the hated game, isn't he, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think Maggie Thatcher, I think, wasn't liked by especially some of the northern people that I know, for what happened with the miners, this, that and the other, and so on and so on and so on. But what I'm saying is, out of all the PMs that I remember, you know what? It should be the guys that have got balls, not the female.
She had balls,
and she had them.
She had them. Like,
and when she needed to do something, she'd done it, and she backed it up. What does Boris do? Let's be honest.
He just waffles, doesn't he?
I'm used to how it used to be,
and
how it used to work. Now, all of them, as I say, not even out of curiosity would I follow any of them. Seriously.
I don't blame you.
I'm just used to working with somebody who knew what they were doing. And that's what a Prime Minister should be doing. Okay? In fighting with their own... And it never happened.
I know you get followed by Piers Morgan. He's a big fan of yours.
Yeah, I've been on his show a couple of times.
I like. You know what? I like Piers. I like his. He goes in. He goes for the kill, doesn't he?
Yeah.
If he's onto someone, he'll latch on.
Yeah.
He's a good entertainer as well.
He is. No. But
it's not to see him not on TV no more. He was pretty.
Yeah, I don't watch it anymore.
No. I don't not no more. Not since he's gone. Like.
But as far as I'm aware, I've met him, we had a good chat and stuff, and go on his show. He's well looked after. He interviews you, and not only that, it's quite handy at getting back to you if you go to him with something on a private message or something like that.
Well, that's nice.
So it's nice to have, people like that. And Nigel Farage is the same.
Yeah.
I get on quite well with Nigel. But at the end of the day, they're not running the country, are they?
No.
So everybody's trying to toe a line, and there's no line there to toe. That's the problem.
My thoughts are right. It's like they're just puppets that are put in place.
Well, they are
by powerful individuals or groups of people that are putting these, like, who in the right mind would vote for Boris Johnson, right, as a prime minister. He's a buffoon. No, he's known.
I know.
He's got. There's no integrity in government.
No.
Right. There's no integrity. There's no honesty. There's no loyalty, and the lies that are coming out.
Lies, just one after another.
It is one after another. So that we're losing faith, especially in this COVID stuff that we've been going on as well. There's been a lot of. I to be fair, when I first heard about it, I was quite vigilant in everything I was doing. Gloves on, mask on. I was really afraid of going out. My partner was pregnant at the time, so I was trying to protect her, protect the kids, protect myself, because I've been in a vulnerable situation due to illness in the past. So I thought, whoa. But then you're hearing more and more and more. I think, fucking hell, what's it? Where are we here? What are we believing? Is this... I know there's a lot. I'm not going down the road of conspiracy theories on this. I've got my own views on it, and it's not for this platform at the moment.
No.
I'm here to talk to yourself, and
yeah, well,
I do like debates, though. I do like.
I'm against it all.
Yeah.
I've never worn a mask. Never. The closest you get, if I need it, is this, but I'm exempt anyway. So. And I'll never go down those lines. No, I know what's going on. I know what's going on. And you're right, it's probably not for this one.
Yeah.
But I know what's going on. Yeah. And it's going to be found out.
I agree. And you know what? I've got the same feelings. I think if you've got that intuition, if you've got that awareness and that knowing inside, look, this is not right. right?
It's not right.
And my thoughts and feelings are the same as yourself. I'm on the same path as you. You know, I don't need to have something offered to me or bullied into taking something, right? Obviously, we've got to be careful how you speak, because they like to dismiss everything that's kind of like freedom of speech, which, it's fucking sad really, but do you know what, I've really enjoyed, look, we've spoken for ages, it's great, I could speak to you all day long, right? Well, I've really enjoyed this chatting with you and stuff. It's like, I do like listening to the stories from back in the day, and I understand how different it is for you today, because you're like, what, 72? You know, you're looking well for it, by the way, you know, you do. And
it's because I don't go stitching people up.
You don't go what?
Stitching people up.
That's it.
I've got something to say, I'll say it.
Yeah. That's it. Don't beat around the bush.
No.
I was up in Carlisle a couple of weeks ago, by the way.
It's changed.
It has. I had a history lesson from a friend of mine up there. Show me around like Carlisle Castle and the place. Lovely, you know.
I was up there about 2 years ago myself.
And you're back up on the 24th.
No, 20th.
The 20th of March. So for anyone,
Harrowby Theatre.
It's Harrowby Theatre
in Carlisle.
In Carlisle. So we're coming to the end of the podcast. But before we come to the end, sorry, let's come to the end. We're going to talk about these books. So these 2 books that you've written, The Regiment, 15 years in the SAS.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for those who are interested in it, it takes you from when I was born, basically, up until the day I left, which is 92. And in there, it's my early childhood. Tells you a bit about the artillery, a bit about football, and then the commandos, basically going through what we've just discussed in some format, all the way through to my last day in the SAS. I'm hoping to get the 3rd book out, which is from that day to present, whatever present is. And as I say, people who've read it, it's on Audible as well. Both of them are on Audible. And of course, the memories when I was writing it just came flooding back, So it's doing well. And of course, straight from my website, you can order them. And I'm doing lots of book signings and stuff. So that's The Regiment. That one is signed and it's to you.
Oh, thank you. Very grateful for that. Really am.
Go, Go, Go. That was the first book. This has got an Audible as well. And Go, Go, Go is the definitive account of the Iranian Embassy siege, which eventually the filmmakers came after me, and I became an advisor when they told me and wrote the script for it. And they called it 6 days, numeral 6 days, on Netflix. As I say, Jamie Bell there on the front of my book cover, who plays Rusty Firmin in the film. And that takes you through everything from day 1 to day 6, hence 6 days of film. But the book is called Go, Go, Go. That one's not signed yet.
Yeah. And also we can get you, on your website. Obviously, like I said before, I'll put all the links in the description.
And they're on the SAS TV and stuff are on there.
Yeah, and do you know what, right, I agree with you. Like when you write something, right, it's like I couldn't really remember much because I'm getting older, and the older I get, the more I forget. But I remember, like, when I've written myself a couple of books now, so it's like memories flood back.
Yeah, they do.
It's incredible how they do.
One follows another.
It's always like it goes in chronological kind of like order for me. It was like okay, so the beginning, the middle, the end. Okay, so let's identify with the beginning. Let's talk about what happened to me in the middle, and let's go to redemption, the end, and
I've also got my diaries from 1992 to present.
So you've got loads of stuff to reflect on and look back up on, haven't you, really? Yeah.
So I've kept all my diaries. I didn't have a diary when I was serving, but when I came out, from day 1 being self-employed as a security consultant, I kept diaries. But no, I didn't throw them away. I've kept them all.
What was that like, though, quickly, before we end, on like working as a security consultant? Did you ever get involved in, you said earlier on, about like the close quarter protection abroad? Was that?
Yeah, we've done all that stuff and trained it abroad.
Yeah.
I used to run the security for, or worked with John Mack and them for Americans.
Yeah.
I was involved with Mel Gibson when he was making Braveheart. And running security at the Japanese Embassy in Kabul. It's all very, different types of security and training bodyguards abroad. The night this was on, I was in Istanbul, 5 of us on a training team.
I'm a blue, by the way. It doesn't matter, but it's with you.
Training a bodyguard team there as well for 6-7 weeks, I think we were there. So it just happens to bring it home. Things like that bring it home. Yeah. So all over
memories, aren't they?
Yeah, all over the world. Training.
Here's a quick question, right? Because I've got loads of questions, and I know we're coming, but I'll end on this question, right? Well, I won't. I've got one more after this. Special Forces, right? Who do you feel or think are the most elite in the world? Like, you've got the Russian Spetsnaz.
Yeah.
You've got, SAS, obviously. Top of the...
I still think that the SAS are the best.
Yeah.
But not only that, you've got Delta, you've got... Oh, there we go. 1977, Delta were formed. On my selection, with 2 Americans, Bucky Burrow was one of them. He went back afterwards and set up Delta Force from what he'd learned on this.
From the SAS.
So we met him, nice guy. He went back and formed Delta, along with Charlie Beckwith and Bucky Burrows, and Delta was formed.
And that's when you had movies like Delta Force with Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
You remember? And, you've got the SEALs, the Navy SEALs.
Yeah. They're all pretty good at what they do. But I think, from what my tours around the world and talks and stuff, 90% of them still think that the British SAS are the best.
So what about the SBS? Because they sort of like a...
I've not done a lot of dealings with them, but they're maritime, aren't they? They're actually... people think they're army, but they're not. The SBS come under the Navy.
Yeah.
They're,
Special Boat Service.
Yeah. So they do a good job what they do on water. But within a squadron, we have a boat troop, we have a mobility troop, we have a mountain troop, and a mobility mountain boat troop and free fall troop, Halo, So that's the 4 troops that make up a squadron. We've got 4 squadrons in a regiment, about 60 in each.
Brilliant.
So they're cross-trained in quite a lot. And if you think about it, that's all method of infiltration. Parachuting, boat, over the mountains, mobility.
Yeah. It's clever, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's it. And it works. Don't fix something that's not broken.
I agree with that.
Seriously.
One. And at the end of every podcast, Rusty, I always ask the guest if they got any pearls of wisdom or anything they'd say. What would you say to a young Rusty Firmin coming through the doors of life if you had the opportunity now to...
Well, everybody's inspired by somebody, and I've done it already. But I would think anybody can achieve an aim. You have to go for the highest one. If you don't quite get there, give yourself a pat. But you have to go. And once you start and give yourself a goal to meet, just keep going. You're going to hit some good times, you're going to hit some bad times. But you know what? You've got to keep going and going and going. And as they say, who dares wins is the SAS motto. Give it a go. Pick what you want to do and go for it. Only you can do it. I can't do it for you. I can help. I can inspire or help to inspire. But only you can do it. I had to do it my way. You have to do it your way. But you've done your stuff your way. So I probably can't do what you did. But we've all gone and we've all met up eventually.
Yeah.
We've got there.
Yeah.
Now that's not by luck, because the ones who haven't have fallen by the wayside. And there's lots of them. Just don't become one of them. Don't get into bad ways. I was heading for it as a 15-year-old. And go and try and achieve what you want to achieve. And then help others. As I say, I'm a patron for 4 charities. I don't get paid for it. It's what I do.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, to do, especially with the veterans and stuff, of which I'm a veteran, obviously. But go for it.
Oh, yeah.
Or go for it.
Oh, go for it.
How about that one? But yeah.
And with that, mate, thank you very much for coming along. It really was a pleasure.
No problem, mate.